Do you want to talk about it?
I don't think anyone ever really wants to talk about it.
I just wanted to come home so, so I can fix things.
You want to talk about being alone, huh? He's had it pretty rough too, apparently.
How do you fix things, man, when you're the one who's fucked it all up?
You gonna order another drink or not?
I'll take another. How am I supposed to get up from rock bottom?
The way I see it, it's not too late. No matter how much it hurts, keep moving.
Galaxy of Film presents.
Let's fucking go!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special episode of the LFG podcast. My name is Messina, and I hope everyone is having a great start to their day. For this episode, I am joined by a very special guest. She is predominantly a TV writer with credits in projects like House, Chicago Hope, Star Trek The Next Generation, just to name a few. But she has also dabbled in some film projects throughout her career, including 2016's Milton Secret, and also planning out the story for 2001's Lara Croft Tomb Raider starring Angelina Jolie. Please welcome my guest, Sara B. Cooper. How you doing, Sara?
I'm well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing really good, Sara. Thank you for coming on for this episode. Probably without any further ado, we can get right into the interview if you're all good with that.
Sure.
All right, let's get right into it. So first, I want to know, since you are pretty much a writer throughout your career, you've worked mostly in TV. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So writing has pretty much become this passion that throughout your entire life. Was there anything specific that made you become fascinated with writing in general, and specifically was becoming a film/TV writer? Has that always been a dream of yours?
Well, no. So there are writers who say, "Oh, I want to become a writer," and there are this people like me who just write. You say it's a passion. I call it a sickness. And so I've always written since I was younger. I wrote my first poem when I was 3. I wrote my first play when I was 7. I just wrote, and the and I was not planning to become a writer. Uh, I was actually an acupuncturist by the time I started writing, and was planning to do that for the rest of my life. But I had an idea for an episode of Star Trek, and I studied scripts from there, and I wrote a script. And my husband at the time was an actor, and he showed it to his manager, and the manager showed it to the guys at Star Trek, and they had me come in and pitch stories. So it was kind of a very plot twist situation in
So
my
was
life.
that was your pretty much your first writing credit working on Star Trek?
Yeah, selling them stories. That was it.
And that was the one with Patrick Stewart, am I correct? The Star Trek
Yeah,
Next
next gen.
Generation.
Exactly, yeah.
So continuing on with that, then, throughout your career, you have worked on projects, like I said, on Star Trek Next Generation, the X Files. I believe you worked a couple episodes for that.
Yep.
House later down in life, and then more predominantly, you have had a bunch of writing credits on the hit TV show Chicago Hope. I believe it was
Mhm.
around 40-ish episodes that you worked on for that show.
Well, yeah, yes, I was, I was on staff, and so you get, credit for whatever's there. But I was on staff for 2 years for Chicago Hope. Yeah, and I think my name is on at least, I think, about 8 episodes as a writer, but as a like producer, I I am listed on more. So
Now,
yeah.
can you explain probably the main difference between being a producer on television and what a producer means working on a major film production?
So producer is one of those words that like encompasses a large
No,
amount.
no problem. No problem. You can swear anytime you want.
Okay, a shit ton of stuff. So you can be a producer if you bring the book to the writer. You can be a producer if you're involved with the financing. You can be a producer if you are an actor. You can be a producer if they can't afford to pay you at one thing and you want more, so they'll add a producer credit so that you get the money that you want, which means that you're not really doing anything except getting paid for your original job. So but in the United States, what was when I started, and I think it still is that as you work as a writer on different shows, your title gets bumped up with your experience. So there are people who got all the way to executive producer, but never really learned how to produce a TV show. I was lucky that I mean, they were writers, but they never did any of the production stuff. But I was lucky that the showrunners that I worked for, most of them wanted to make sure that each of their writers knew how to produce an episode. So that means everything from being in casting, being on a location scout, being in tone meetings, being in production meetings, understanding what the budget is, learning how to write to the budget, and all the way through post. So I got that training. I was really lucky in that situation. Yeah,
Okay. You were
yeah.
pretty much
And then
scrambling with
as
a
a
bunch of
producer,
different.
yeah, a lot of different things. Uh, from costuming, from soup to nuts. In movies, when you're a writer, you're sort of just the writer unless you want to take on, I mean, they might bestow a producer credit on you. It's just it's a different dog. It's often you'll write something and you hand it off and that's the last you see of it. So, and you get your name on the credit and that's it. Yeah.
I got you.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
No,
yeah.
no, that pretty much answered it for me right there. So continuing off of those shows like that, and even some that I haven't even mentioned throughout your career, what exactly type of knowledge were you able to gain from working on each of these individual projects? And was there a specific one where you felt like you gained the most throughout becoming a writer or just having a producer role, like you just said? Was there anything specific that you learned from to kind of carry you throughout your entire life?
Well, I had a steep learning curve with my first job on staff on X-Files, and Chris Carter was one of those showrunners that made sure that you knew how to produce from the beginning to the end, which was great, except I had never gone to film school. And so I had no idea what a call sheet was. I had no idea what a one-liner was. I didn't know anything about lighting or anything. So I felt like I was constantly playing catch up in learning stuff, but I had a lot of good support with the other writers, sort of to help guide me, particularly Glenn Morgan and James Wong. Yeah, it's that I learned a large amount of hard lessons in that first show that I did. It was like going to film school, but in the process.
Was there a particular show that you had the most fun writing for? And I know you've had the most experience working on Chicago Hope, but was there any other type of show? It can be Chicago Hope if you want to, but
Well,
was there?
Chicago Hope I did 2 years on Chicago Hope, and then I got hired on another show. So,
Okay.
um, there are some shows that were delicious because of the writing and the quality of the writing, and there are some shows that were delicious because of the people, and there's an intersection of those. Homicide Life on the Streets always comes to mind because I also learned a lot on Homicide, just in terms of producing and running a show. But I had fun on Combat Hospital. I had fun on Continuum. I had fun on House. It's the people that make the difference in situations like that. So yeah, I would say those are my big top ones, I guess. Oh, I just did one big Punjabi family, which was fun. It was just 3 of us in the writer's room, but it was fun because they were really great people. So yeah, that was good.
Nice.
Mhm.
And so we're continuing on throughout your career. You eventually got the call to help plan out the 2001 Lara Croft movie starring Angelina Jolie. Am I correct?
Well, so I want to check in with your languaging because it wasn't that I helped plan it out. I was hired to write a script.
Okay.
So a call went out for people to pitch ideas for this, this game. They weren't planning to put much money into it. They didn't think a female lead was going to, bring in much money. They hired me and another guy to write. We pitched and they hired 2 people to write the script simultaneously, and they were just going to pick one or the other of the scripts. So I wrote it, and then Charlie's Angels came out and made I'm going to use a shit ton of money, like it made bank, and they went, oh, women can, lead an action adventure show or an action show and make money. So what happened was I turned in my script and they said, so long, we're going with an A-list writer. I wasn't an A-list writer at the time. And then 11 writers later, it got, made into a movie. But there were, and what kept happening was that they would throw away my script and then another script would come in and they wouldn't like it. So they'd go back to my script and then they would take, so they were rewriting off of my script, and there was enough similarity between my script and the finished script that was the shooting script that I got credit. But at one point I got a call from a friend saying, I think I'm rewriting you. She was hired to rewrite the Lara Croft script, and they gave her mine. And they said, take this and rewrite it. So that's how that happened. That's how I had my name on it.
Okay, I got it. Completely understand now with that
Yeah.
aspect.
Mhm.
So as you were writing this first script for the Lara Croft movie, did you have any prior knowledge about what the game was about? And then how were you able to consider some elements to be adapted into the movie? And I kind of want to know what those planning stages are like very early on.
So the directive that I was given, which shifted as after Charlie's Angels, but the directive I was given was to make it as closely as possible to the game in terms of the layers. And I had played the game, so I was like a big fan of the
Okay.
game. And to make it as close to the game where, where she's going along and she picks up something that it's going to help her later on, at another level. So I stuck pretty much to the game structure of it. And the other piece was she doesn't kill anyone. That was like a real big directive. She does not kill anyone.
Okay.
So those were my 2 things. I wrote that, and then I guess after Charlie's Angels, when I talked with my friend who did one of the rewrites, I said, are you keeping the structure of the game? And she said, no, they threw that out. That's one of the reasons why they're shifting it, is that yours reads too much like the game. So they threw that out. We're now just going straight action movie.
It was nice that you were able to kind of get a sense of, playing the game, so that kind of helped in that at least like build the structure of what the movie ended up turning out. So
Mhm.
good, pretty good on that part. Kind of moving off that, I want to know, kind of in your opinion, what would you consider to be the most important part or aspect for writing any piece of literature, whether that be for a movie or television show, or even for a book? What would you say would be the biggest part about it?
Um, Writing it. Um, I know uh, a million people come up to me and say, I have a great idea for a book, movie, TV show. And I'm like, that's great. And they go, maybe you'll write it for me. No, it's your idea. It's hard to sit down and do the writing. Like, I don't hate to, I love to quote, throw a moment from the train, but writers write. And so the discipline of sitting down, getting used to the discomfort of writing. Writing is not comfortable all the time. It's not comfortable a lot of the time. There's very rarely when you're in that zone. So you have to learn how to be uncomfortable with discomfort sometimes. And I think just sitting down and doing it is really, really hard.
I got you, because yeah, I've had that problem before. Like I've tried writing even like short scripts before in my life, and it's you really got to plan out like, okay, like this is the character I want. How do I want him to like act? What does his goals be? And how do I want the overall
Yeah.
thing, kind of like the overall message to be around the whole thing? So I completely like get it. Like I've done that stuff before in my life. So
You get it.
I totally understand how you feel.
Mhm.
Um, so kind of moving into now, another movie that you ended up co-writing was 2016's Milton Secret.
Yeah.
So I believe that one was also based on a book
Mhm.
uh previously. So I kind of wanted to know about that. What was your initial draw into helping co-write Milton Secret? Was it the book itself? Was it kind of the story that you were pitched, or was there any other factors for it?
So Eckhart Tolle is a writer. He's a philosopher. He's a teacher, and he wrote a book called The Power of Now. And the message of The Power of Now is very powerful. It's about learning how to be in the present. And it was a very important book in my life, and you know, sort of shifted how I saw things. And he only wrote one, but he wrote a children's book. He might have written more since, but at the time he had only written one. And my agent called me up and said, um, look, there's a script out there. There's a script that's been written from this book, but they need a rewrite. They're not getting financing off of the script. They need a rewrite. And so I put you forward. And so they came to me. They hired me. I pitched, and they hired me, and I did a rewrite, working with the producers and the director. I did a rewrite of the film, and they used that to get financing, and then the film was made. So those sort of the steps of it. Um, I was really excited to be working on something that was associated with Eckhart Tolle um, and the teachings, and get those teachings out there. So yeah, I say
And,
teachings, message is more like it. Yeah.
and for those who don't know, Milton Secret is about this boy who is kind of having some struggles with his life, kind of figuring out his place. His family is kind of going through some financial struggles, wondering if they're trying to keep the house, while at the same time he's uh, being bullied by his neighbor, his kid's neighbor, uh, and he's kind of just wondering like where he kind of belongs in the present time. So that's kind of just a general sense of what the movie is about. Um,
Good.
yeah, I was actually going to ask you what the writing process was like, but you did mention that you were called in to rewrite the script. To my understanding, I believe there were two other co-writers that were credited for this movie. Can you
Yeah.
gotta go into more detail about how that was like?
So, I can't remember the name of the first one. Oh, I'm so bad. So there was the first writer, He wrote a script. And then Barnett Bain, who was the director, did a pass. And then they brought that to me, the Barnett's pass. And it just needed some more structure. It needed structure. And so that's often what I'm called in, is to provide structure to scripts. So I do script doctoring and story editing on things. So that's what I did. I took it, I tried to keep the message of what they were doing, keep the general story, cleave to the book and what its its message is. And then I did that pass. Now, what ended up happening is they got the funding, and then Barnett did another pass. So the script, the movie that you saw, is not the script I wrote, although there's a lot of it of me in there, but it is more Barnett's vision than my script was. So yeah,
Got you there.
give credit where credit's due. Yeah.
Exactly. This is kind of correlating back to the Lara Croft movie, because you have had experience with adapting a piece of art and translating it into film, basically. So kind of comparing and contrasting those two different movies, what would you say would be the hardest thing about adapting any form of media like that, whether it's like a video game or like a book, or even like a television show that's being adapted into a film?
So yeah, that's a really good question, because I've done actually a couple of adaptations for television too, trying to sell things. And another movie. You want to try and keep the spirit and the message and the themes of it. I mean, it's the thing of like, what was the thing that made you fall in love with it in the first place? That is always, what about that character do you want to keep, and how do you want to enhance or shift? Sometimes when you have a book and you like are trying to adapt it to a movie, let's say, if you do it verbatim, like from page one on, it's the pacing of a book is not really conducive necessarily to a movie or to a television show. So you need to take in the voice of the writer and learn how, like get that. And it's what you have to do when you're working on a television show and there's a showrunner. You have to learn how to write to that writer's voice. So you learn how to write to the author's voice and keep the heart of the message, keep the heart of the characters as much as possible, and then write within that for the format that you want to do. I don't know if that made sense, but if it's a feature, then you try and keep that within the structure of a feature. So for Lara Croft, that's an action. They wanted an action show. So, you wanted to have, and actually a game is sort of like that. You want to have high stakes. You want to have increasing pressure. You want to have increasing danger and risk. There's, that kind of stuff. You have a plan gets thwarted. You make a new plan, that gets thwarted. And, there's chase scenes and fight scenes. So you do that. That's how you adapt that way. If you're doing like Jane Austen, it's an entirely different type of adaptation.
Of course.
But you want to try and keep true. Now, there's sometimes that it's just the premise that people like. So they'll take a book and they'll throw almost everything out but the premise and redo it, and that works too. But you have to really be true to what you loved when you first read the book, or the game or the whatever you're adapting, and try and keep that alive in your adaptation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great answer. And then obviously having experience in both television and in kind of the film industry, what would you say would be the biggest comparisons and the biggest contrast to how your experiences have been in both of those art forms. What was your favorite thing about working in each one of these industries?
So I'm going to split television into two parts. There's television when you're on staff, and then there's television when you're in development.
Okay.
And then there's film. Television when you're on staff, it's fast. You write a script and it's in production sometimes within a month. Television when you're in development and or feature writing, you can write a script and 5, 10, 15 years later, it will get made. The control that you have when you're in television is much more as a writer than if you are a feature writer. A feature writer sort of writes and then sort of lets it go off into the air, and they kill your babies and they do whatever. Unless, you're lucky enough to be a producer and have say on it, but that's not all the time. Or you're directing it yourself or producing it yourself. In television has been in the past, at least in the United States and Canada, a writer's medium, and you are producing your own stuff. I do love that about television. I really love that control. And I also like the collaboration. The other thing about television is that it's really, really collaborative. You're working with, 4 or 5 to 7 or 8 people in a room, creating these stories in this world that's going to span a large amount of time. When you're writing for features, unless you've got a writing partner, it's just you. Your butt's in the chair and that's it. And sometimes you talk with the producers and you show them what you want and they give you notes, and sometimes you're just by yourself, writing, facing the blank page. So yeah, feature is harder to break into and be part of. And as well, actually television is too, but yeah, I don't know. That's the big differences for me, is just the turnaround time, how much control you have, and whether you're collaborating or not.
Continuing on that question, in your opinion, how would you say film and TV has changed over time, including adaptations, ever since your career really began? Was there anything specific that you noticed with that?
Yeah, so MTV has shifted a lot of things in terms of editing. And so if you look at shows, before my time even, or even when I started, like in the 80s and even into the early 90s and such, the editing, it's and the directing is really like main shot, 2 shot, over the shoulder, 1-1. Like, you know what I mean by that, right?
Yes.
So, and that was it. Like the camera moved sometimes there was motion, there was, whatever. There weren't like too many fancy shots, not too much choreographed. So, and you could sit on a main shot forever and not like edit. But with this faster paced editing with MTV, editing to music, we started processing information faster. So people started getting bored with that old ways. Our brains they were craving more input.
Mm-hmm.
So not only has directing and editing shifted, but how we write our scenes. We don't have 4 and 5 page scenes that much anymore. If you do, maybe only one in an episode, or in a script. So there's that fast paced telling. There's also now that we have more like motion cap or drones or GoPros, what we visually can start to do is more. So we can play with that. There's also just the use of popular music. The types of stories we can tell has shifted. And the new voices coming in has shifted. We were so hero's journey centric, and if I may, white male cis centric, for so long, that now we're telling stories differently. We may not be telling a hero's journey story. We might just be telling a slice of life story, or a revelation story where the main character doesn't go through a transformation, but just understands more about themselves and realizes more about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the types of stories we're telling are different. The way we're telling them is different. The leeway we have in telling them is different. Yeah, there's a lot shifted, and you have to like keep up with it. Not have to, you get to keep up with it. Yeah.
All right, all right. And my next question for you would be, is there any advice that you would like to give to any young, up and coming writers that are looking to make it in big with in any kind of literary art form? Would you say, having this uh previous experience and knowledge that you have been given throughout your entire life?
Yeah, so usually what I tell them is to take courses in communication and nonviolent, conflict resolution, because this business isn't easy. You need to learn how to work with sometimes very difficult people. Not a lot of people have people skills. You need to learn how to center yourself. You need to learn how to calm yourself, because there is a large amount of rejection. And to be able to go through life getting constantly rejected, and persevering through that, there needs to be a good sense of self and centeredness, so that you're not just getting all of the juice out of life from someone else telling you that you're good. Writing for the love of writing is awesome, is really, really awesome. And I would, do those extra little steps, especially if you're going to be working in a field like TV or feature, where there's a large amount of money at stake, and a lot of people don't have good people skills. And so you need to learn how to deal with that. And then don't have writing be your only creative outlet, because even when you are writing, there are periods, until you get it to those top tier writers, there are periods, and even if you do, there are periods of slumps. If a strike is called, we were out for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pencils down. You don't write. So learning that other outlet so that you can step away from writing, because making writing your job can take a bit of the fun and the juice out of writing. So yeah, those are the things I'd recommend. I don't know, for what it's worth. Yeah.
All right, that's some great advice given right there. And as we head into the final stretch of our conversation, Sarah, I just want to hear any final thoughts about yourself. Is there any upcoming projects that you're secretly
Mm.
working on in the back?
Yeah. So there's some I can't talk about, but I'm working, I'm doing some rewrites on a feature. And then I have my own feature that I'm almost finished with. Doing development on 4 projects. Yeah, 4 projects that are in development, on various stages of development. I'm pitching on Monday for an adaptation of a book for a TV show. So yeah, I'm sort of, and I'm teaching at Vancouver Film School, which is a great school.
Nice.
If you want to go to a good film school. So I'm teaching writing there, writing both for TV and for feature. So yeah, I'm keeping busy. Yeah.
Good. Anything else that you would like to let our audience know about yourself?
Ooh.
Any fun facts?
Oh, fun fact. So yeah, I always tell people, have something to fall back on. I started out as an acupuncturist, right? So
Oh, really?
yeah. So I have yeah, they're over there. I have my needles, and I keep my license up, and that kind of thing. And yeah, have something in your back pocket always, because even if you are writing, like there's slumps, but sometimes you need to step away from it and get knowledge of the world. I noticed that with a lot of my students, and I've taught writing 20 plus years. A lot of my students who go straight to film school and then, are writing, the breadth and the depth of their writing is limited because they don't have life experience. And the only experience they know and the only references they know are films, and usually just from their generation. So like the other day I was teaching about the MacGuffin, and I said, what is the most famous MacGuffin of all? And what I got was the ring from the Lord of the Rings. I'm like, yes, but it's the Maltese Falcon. And there were just blank stares. And learn the old movies, like watch the old movies, watch the old TV shows, because there's such a depth of knowledge and breadth of knowledge there that enriches what you write. If you can pull from, because there's times when you're tired and you have to write something, and if you'll pull from what you know, and if what you know is just like 2010 TV shows, it gets bad. But if you have a breadth of black and white movies all the way through, Shakespeare, read the classics, get deep in your knowledge, do a book club. Yeah, that's what I recommend. Expand your brain and that will bring richness to your writing.
Also, real quick, I'm kind of curious what type of fiction that you like to write about. Anything like maybe like sci-fi or like a mystery type of writing? Anything specific?
So I'm sort of a rare bird in that my niche or my brand is that I'm eclectic. So most people are like, oh, they're science fiction writers or they're this writers. I sort of write everything. So what do I like to write? I like to write stories that have a deeper meaning and maybe can, pass on a significant message about how we should be in the world. That being said, I love writing everything from medical to horror to action to sci-fi to historical fiction. I love that. The only thing I don't like to write is legal. So everything else is fair game.
Understandable.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, then I believe that concludes our interview, Sara. Thank you for coming on for this special episode of LFG. You're welcome. Where can our followers find you if you have any social media, or if there's any place that people would like to look you up on the internet?
I think I'm so bad with that because I normally don't do stuff like this. I'm on LinkedIn. I think I have an Instagram account, but there's 5 followers. And that's about it. I have a private page, I have my private stuff, but yeah, that's it. I should do more. I'll do more. I'll get there sometime. Yeah.
You got it. You still got some time to figure that out for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. And people can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram. On Instagram, you can follow me at Blion2K24, and on Twitter, you can follow me at Brandon M226. You can also follow the Galaxy of Film channel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel, which we have various forms of video content. We have short films, we have video essays, we have a bunch of live streams on there. You can look up and subscribe to our channel there. You can also look up our galaxyfilm.com website, where we have a bunch of our portfolios of our work, also including all of our previous podcast episodes that we have done in the past. I'd also like to thank Sara again for coming on for this episode. It was a really great conversation me and you had. And I hope everyone else enjoyed this special episode as much as we did. Peace out, everyone. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.